Wow. Oh boy. We are here after 8 episodes, 2 months of our lives here at the end of season 2 of House of the Dragon. I, as always, am your host, Alden Diaz, here on Casterly Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for joining us the whole season. If you've been with us the whole time, we've picked up some new subscribers and the views and comments have been great. And thank you everybody for being here. Really excited for the last episodic discussion of this season. We're still going to do a season wrap up, and there's going to be plenty more to talk about. There is that little snippet of Night of the Seven Kingdoms out there now. There's stuff to talk about in this episode of the sort of the franchising of this and the connections and everything that are very, very exciting. Here in the comments, Haskell's here. Hello. Jared's here. Big G's here. Did they say how long the wait's going to be? Not officially. We'll talk about that. Jamar Jones is here. Hello. Thank you everybody for joining us. I, of course, though, am not alone. Somebody who's been with me on the front lines, fighting the good fight for Team Black the entire season, and has been one of my favorite people to talk about in general, but just specifically about this material too. From Genders, Queers, and Buccaneers, one of my very favorite people. Andy is here. Hello.
Let's go. Let's talk about it.
Oh, so, obviously nothing happened this season, and I don't know why HBO decided to just do nothing the entire 8 weeks. That's what I've been told by certain people, is that nothing has happened. So I guess we got nothing to talk about.
I feel like a lot of people are forgetting that the best seasons of Game of Thrones were seasons 1 through 4, and that those seasons were defined by people in gardens having conversations.
Yep. Machinations and a lot of this will happen later talk, a lot of building up the alliances and this and that. Like, we'll talk about it a lot. The Triarchy scenes with Tywin Lannister and Abigail Thorne's new character Lohar, I believe.
Shirako
Lohar, who's a badass and is so much fun.
She's amazing.
Super fun character, and she brought such a charisma that made me think of early Game of Thrones. It made me think of some of your more like theatrical, not cartoony, but very animated characters like your Spice Trader or your Zarozo and Doxus, and those characters as well.
We finally got badass characters with like different colored hair, which is such a weird complaint. But oh my god, I'm having a brain fart. But the mercenary, yes, thank you, Dario. Dario is described in the books as like purple beard and like blue hair, and Euron Greyjoy in the books has like blue painted lips because he's drinking Shade of the Evening and crazy hair. Like, there's all these wild and colorful descriptions of characters, and like Game of Thrones was going for a much more grounded take, and I love that Hot D is like, no, let's do it.
Yeah, and it makes sense too of like, they have the brand confidence to be able to flex a little bit more than early Game of Thrones might have, but it also works in world of like, look at how much more vibrant this was during a time of magic and during a time of less just nothing was like depleted. Like, we've talked in previous episodes about how the realm is poor, and like even these outside realms, like the relations were seemingly more active and stronger back then. There was more interaction with the princes over there, with the Triarchy over there, whereas all you really hear about by the time of Game of Thrones is that they are aware of the Dothraki and they have like some spies over there in the free cities, but it's not like there's an active relationship beyond the Iron Bank when necessary. So excited about that. Jared says, I respectfully want to mud wrestle her. I can't say I blame you.
She is gorgeous.
Gorgeous, charismatic, badass. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about a lot of stuff. We will talk about the relationships. Just rattling off these scribble notes. We have Lohar. We have Aegon and Larys. We have the Queen Who Never Was being the new ship name. We have some of the great editing choices. What's happening with Jacaerys? What's happening with Criston Cole? What's happening with Alice Rivers and that small, teeny tiny character, Daenerys Stormborn.
I thought you were about to say Bloodraven.
Right, exactly. We got what looked like Viserion as well in that. I'm assuming that is a glimpse of the dead Viserion. All of what is happening there, all of which I managed to stay leak free on. I don't know if you were able to do that.
I blocked a lot of people on Twitter this week. I did see one tweet saying, "Was that a Bloodraven cameo?" And that's the most like a Song of Ice or of Ice and Fire brain like fan take. Like, oh yeah, like they put a Bloodraven cameo in the finale episode of Hot Tea, but like no, that was the one thing I had spoiled for me, and I didn't. So I was shocked it happened.
Yeah, I didn't have anything spoiled for me except I saw an offhanded tweet about Damon saying winter is coming, but I wrote that off as like, oh, I mean, yeah, the Starks are coming. Like I took it as a like military based thing. Did not expect it in that full context. Before we dive further in, we have with us once again one of our greats, one of our council members, Sea Smoke's biggest fan from First Cut and Geeks of Color, Andres.
Andy, what's up?
How's it going?
Going good.
Crazy last couple hours of our lives, Andres. We're gonna get into the huge connections to Game of Thrones and what that means and the bold choices and everything. Sort of setting the table. We were talking about how the finale did leak, but we managed to mostly stay leak free. I didn't see much. Andy only saw one thing. What was your experience with that going in? Did you have to block a lot of people? Or are you just pretty removed in general that you didn't feel that threatened by the leak?
Yeah, thankfully I did not have anything spoiled for me, and that was what I was aiming for. I think I'm pretty good at this point at avoiding spoilers in general.
Nice. So. Yeah, you've been around the block a few times. I have. You've been in the nerd world enough times to know how to navigate it.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a lot to discuss here, so let's get right into it. The whole season we've kind of focused blacks and greens in general, but there's a lot of interweaving here. But I want to start, we could just move sort of chronologically. Yeah, it's so muddied. People are no longer staying in their camp. The world is becoming a little bit more appropriately gray. Or literally muddy if you're in the Triarchy, or if you're Otto, who Otto looks like shit for like I know he was missing, but I thought
Otto Hightower.
Yeah, I interpreted we can't find Otto as Otto doesn't want to be found or he's on the road. I did not think that something had actually happened to him, which is very interesting. So let's start with our pirates. We've already discussed her a little bit. Abigail Thorne joining the show, who we recently saw in The Acolyte playing one of our new witches on that show. Now she's here playing this captain who, is a fighter, is a lover, evidently, and has several different pirate wives, but is also, has a code of honor that is so antithetical to everything House Lannister is that it's just really good natural comedy, I think, to pair those two together and to give Tywin something to do. Like it might feel awkward to be like, let's do this funnier storyline in the last episode, but I think because this episode serves as like this huge expanding of the world and now all the players are in, it kind of feels appropriately Game of Thronesy to do that. So we'll start with you, Andy, how you felt about this whole expansion of what the Triarchy is and will be.
I love pirates. If you couldn't tell by my podcast being called Genders, Queers, and Buccaneers. I love queer representation, if you couldn't tell by my podcast called Genders, Queers, Buccaneers. So I was pretty freaking amped. I'm also a huge fan of Abigail Thorne. I've been watching her YouTube channel for years. I love that she had a line about philosophy. I couldn't have been more pumped. I love the weird shit on the fringes of George's universe and like 3 city-state pirate nations. Like it's so good. So like there was so much there that I felt like was for me. Couldn't have been happier with all of those scenes.
Yeah, I love that you pointed out the philosophy thing. I didn't even think of that. That's pretty funny.
I didn't catch that at all.
Yeah, that's really cool. That seems like something that you'd come up with on the day.
Her YouTube channel is Philosophy 2.
Yes.
Yeah. So
that's
that
great.
Was dope.
Andres, how did you feel about seeing a Lannister get their ass beat in the mud?
I mean, I've seen a few of of her videos, and I've loved everything she's put out as far as the stuff I've seen. Obviously, I am a big fan of video essays in general. So just seeing her on screen playing this role, I think that was really cool. I really do. Yeah, the Lannister aspect, I think it's. I feel like this scene was very much there. They said we just have to have some sort of comedic moment, some sort of break in all the tension that we're about to build up, and we just have to do this with a Lannister because people like making fun of Lannisters. So I felt like it felt very. It felt kind of mandated to me. I don't know if it's like executive mandated or producer mandated or something that they just felt like, all right, we need some comedy. I don't care what it's going to take. But maybe I just felt like the placement was a little bit awkward when it comes to the final episode to do this entire storyline. And we keep cutting back to it. If it was one scene, I'm like, oh, that was fun.
Yeah, get it all in the beginning.
But
yeah,
but the fact that we kept cutting back to it, and it's like part of one of the major storylines where we have so much going on. I just felt like we could have saved time with some other storylines and maybe do that in season 3. So that was.
Can I actually bounce off Andres there?
Yeah,
please. Yeah,
I loved this episode. I hate that it was a season finale. This felt like I needed one more episode this season, and like I have nothing. I have almost nothing bad to say about this episode as a whole. But it doesn't feel like a season finale to me. And so I completely agree with you, Andres, that like for a season finale, maybe we could have saved some of this, but like, I don't know. Yeah. It's my issues with this episode are where it is and not anything really in the episode.
Yeah, that makes sense. It was difficult, I think, to swallow the pill of 8 episodes only. I think I had like repeatedly prepared myself for it to the point where I was, I almost expecting this and also encouraging it. So I think I was a little bit more like on board with the placing and the cutoff. The wait's going to be excruciating. I mean, if there was a guarantee that this was 2025, it would feel better, but there's not. Yeah. And it's not that they've said 2026. They haven't said anything. And the fact that Night of the Seven Kingdoms is next year makes it feel like they might just take their time. But I think I've already started rolling into season 3 production, which I don't know if they've shot anything, but they're gearing up. So we'll see on that. I would, I know they're dedicated to their May date, but it's like, just do winter. Who cares?
I kind of feel like, yeah, I mean, if I'm okay to jump in.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like we have to remember this season was shot during the strike. It's one of the few shows that was shot during the strike, which was low-key kind of controversial. If I don't know if you guys kept up with the strike stuff, but it was kind of controversial.
They're not legally allowed to strike in the UK.
Yes. So I think I just felt it a lot in this episode where they were just like, we'll promise season 3, like you're going to see some stuff in season 3, guys. And that's kind of how it felt to me, where I felt like we definitely needed 2 more in there to make it 10 episodes. And I think it would have worked out, but there were limitations there. And I felt like they were trying to work within their limitations. And that's in general, the writing, the budget, the, dragon action and wars and battles and all that. And I feel like that's what I really felt in this episode. It was very much like, hey, we tried, guys. We did a lot of cool stuff, but I promise you season 3 is going to be epic. And that's just kind of the vibes I got from
but at the same time, not even disagreeing, but just adding on to that, you and I actually texted Andres a few days ago talking about like what's the cutoff point, and without spoiling anything that's coming later, as we always try to not do, there is a battle that is obviously being set up in the last few seconds, where you could see Alyn of Hull and Corlys armored up, and everyone's there. And I think I joked, I was like, they're gonna like send all the ships out, like the gullet's about to start, and then boom, season ends.
We predicted it. We literally predicted this in text. We both said like they're gonna be like, get ready for this battle, and it's gonna be like this epic, like putting on your armor moment, and that's literally what we saw.
It was like the end of Game of Thrones season 6, but for an early chapter. Like it was just like that, and here we go, literally with the ship's visual. But I also like at the same time as all these points, I also wouldn't necessarily want to, and again, I don't want to spoil anything that happens, so I'm going to dance around it. I wouldn't want to just we have to end the season on a battle, because I don't think that's true either. And I think especially with the frequency with which tragedies happen, that's a good way to say it with no spoilers. The frequency with which tragedies happen, we had a huge one already with Rook's Rest that fundamentally changed everything, and then it became a huge season about change, which I think is valid. And we'll talk more about this in other videos and future spoiler things, but it was this was definitely more, I keep calling it like good theater. Like it was so locked into one-on-one scenes that have such huge implications, or even small character implications like Jason Bela or Larys and Aegon, or huge mythic things like with Helena sort of laying out what's going to happen and being factually correct and saying there's nothing you could do that will change it. So it's sort of like using audience expectations to underline the stakes in a really cool way. Go ahead, Andy. I know you're
Helena mystically talking to Damon is something that if you had given me 1,000 monkeys and 1,000 typewriters, I never would have had that. And I loved it. Really, really interesting, cool lore implications there. Got a huge kick out of that.
I echo that. I thought that moment was amazing. I was like, this is nuts. Helena's literally talking to Damon right now. The magical, mystical aspects I thought were so cool.
And what's been really blowing my mind with the Damon and Harrenhal plot that was really driven home here is that it's northern magic, old gods magic, and Targaryen Valyrian magic melding together in really compelling ways. And the Blood Raven cameo really drives that home, because he's got a Blackwood parent and a Targaryen parent, and so kind of pointing to that with a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms coming too. Really, really cool stuff.
And also the way that they leave things to interpretation. We'll talk about this, I'm sure, and when other people join the call, and I think Nikki's coming later and everything, and we'll get into it with Ken, and there's going to be a season discussion and everything that Ken's going to be on and stuff. So more on this, I will just say, for anybody watching or listening after the fact. In terms of the vision itself, I love how much is left to the imagination and to ambiguity, and I love the way that it plays differently for us than it does for the character, but it needs to. So for Damon, he sees the coming destruction and the evil of the Night King and the White Walkers, dead Viserion. But he also, but now I'm getting ahead of myself. But what we know is that is late stage Ice and Fire, right? That's late stage. Whether it's books, whether it's Dan and Dave's version, whatever it is, that's late. Then it ends, though, with something that is early Song of Ice and Fire, which is, of course, Daenerys. Daenerys and the birth of her 3 babies. And that is interesting because it's like we are seeing the thing that we know, and it's doing the franchise thing of being clever with our knowledge. But for him, it's like what he's witnessing tells him Rhaenyra is the path forward to getting through this. And he says we have to fight it. I don't know how, but we do. Paraphrasing. But we know the truth, which is really none of you are the path through to it. But it's still true. He still has to stand firm in his loyalties and affirm himself and reconnect with her so that they can get to that point where someone can rise up. It doesn't mean that you guys are the path to survival. You're not, but you need to play your roles now. That way, everything can transpire. Everything, whether that's what we're going to see in Dunk and Egg, whether that's the Blackfire Rebellions, whether that's the Robert's Rebellion, everything down to Jon Snow. You need to do what you need to do, because Game of Thrones has that causal loop time stuff where it's like it's all happened and it all is going to happen. Perception stuff kind of get in with Hodor, which gets really heady. Game of Thrones is not Terminator time travel, where if Damon doesn't bend the knee to Rhaenyra and rides off on his own host, the world splits. It's not Kelvin Trek, it ends here no matter what. But him seeing it out of order is such an interesting way to get him off his ass. Whoever wants to jump in, because it's a lot.
Yeah, it's I'm here for it. Like I love how weird and dark fantasy the books get with the magic stuff, and like George's books are also really funny, and so like I wasn't too thrown by the kind of levity in this episode on top of all the weird mystical stuff, but I love that the show is unashamed about the weirder aspects of George's world in the way that sometimes Game of Thrones felt like it was a little, this is the cool fantasy show if you don't like fantasy. Like Hot D is just the fantasy show. And I'm very here for it.
Yeah. What about you, Andres?
Yeah, no, I think that's probably my favorite part of the entire episode. It was the one I was most locked in on, and it was the one that I really enjoyed because I did feel I was kind of losing, not hope, but just kind of like, getting impatient with the Damon Vision stuff. And I was like, you guys got to wrap it up in a good way. And I really think they did. And that's definitely the highlight for me. Everything was connected. And I also love the idea of like, the first man and children of the forest and the God's Eye, Isle of Faces, all this kind of coming back to where he's currently located in near Harrenhal. So I think it's really cool and it adds a lot to the story.
Yeah, 100%. It does so much to, again, on a real world level for us as viewers, to make it feel like it is one story, which they sort of, they give you a little appetizer when the Great Council opened with the Star Wars type crawl, and then had Daenerys' name. Then introducing the song so early, then bringing it back a couple times. This was sort of the big like. If it wasn't clear that this is one franchise, if it wasn't clear that we respect GOT, controversies aside, it is one thing. Like the HBO's Game of Thrones Icefire World is one story, definitively. And it matters, not in the way of like, you're not going to get something here without seeing Game of Thrones. It's not that. If you're watching this for the first time and you're new, it doesn't matter that that's Daenerys and that you know her story. It just matters that you see that like their house endures and lives again. You're actually then getting Damon's perspective, because from Damon's perspective, it's like destruction and ruin rains down on them, and then a girl has 3 dragons, and so we rise again. And it's like, you're not entirely wrong, like, but it's just you're seeing a remixed version that is tailor-made to what your soul needs, which is, I think, what's so interesting about George's relationship with prophecy, with the show itself's relationship with prophecy. Like, it's not gonna show him Jon Snow and the free folk and everything, because that's not imagery that is gonna push him, because he would just be like, who's this Night's Watch bastard? Like, this is not I don't understand this. But I think that's Alice Rivers sort of knowing how to customize and remix Damon's mind like a good mixtape in a certain way. And I like the choices too with her performance, that she seems oddly emotional when she wakes him up. Like, she looks like she's crying a little bit and is kind of overwhelmed before leading him over to the tree. So I thought all that was really cool. And then we're going to stick with it. I mean, we talked a little bit about the pirate stuff that's over here, but we've been so on Harrenhal already. Damon and his relationship to Lord Strong sort of proves to be like pivotal here, that like Lord Strong's keeping an eye out for him and kind of worries that he's going to falter. How did you feel about that, and how it leads into the sort of crystallization of Rhaenyra's army?
Simon Strong is an unexpected new favorite character of mine. I love this old man. I love that he's kind of the show inserting Germ into the world. In like, he just feels like George R.R. Martin is on the show, which I think is a delightfully fun nod. And I think it was really compelling that he overheard some conversation, writes Rhaenyra, and then we get a very heartfelt and inspiring moment out of it with Rhaenyra confronting Damon and the army there cheering. It felt like a good wrap up of the Harrenhal stuff. It felt really thematically satisfying for me.
Yeah, I think the cinematic level of it was great too. The fact that we see Rhaenyra come in, obviously fly in, and then once Damon walks in and we get the shot from the back and we see all the soldiers show respect to Damon in some way, kind of threatening that, showing a threatening manner to Rhaenyra, right? Like, we don't know what he's going to do. But my favorite part of that whole scene was the switch to Valerian and him just so like, no one's going to hear us right now. No one's going to understand what we're saying, but I got to tell you this, like, this is what's going on and this is how I feel. Right before, obviously, him bending the knee. I think the whole journey of what it took to get to that scene in that moment, to Damon doing his little speech, was really cool. And again, I like the addition of switching to Valerian, of showing a much more humbled Damon in a changed and transformed, right? We see a performance there that feels different from the Damon we've seen before. So
yeah, it's like he's still gonna be him, no doubt. And then you could see how sort of jazzed he is at the end to have his armor on. Like, this is still the guy. But he has focus, he has a new aim, and it's about roles and it's about stories. And I could not help but feel that, the most controversial television show ending since maybe Seinfeld with Game of Thrones season 8 it's not affirmed whether you like it or not like it, but they sort of double down on HBO Game of Thrones' interpretation of like what the actual motivating like core of it is, which is the importance of stories and stories in terms of, and that season's kind of done that overall with its big emphasis on propaganda, and both shows going back to the beginning of cripples, bastards, and broken things, and like labels and what we say and what we tell each other. And later in Game of Thrones, when there's all these stories about Rhaegar, and then Barristan is like, Rhaegar he enjoyed music and he liked going to talk to people. Like, there's always like the story that we're telling is always such a focus. And Damon realizes appropriately, since he is the 11th Doctor, that we are all stories. And he realized, I'm a key supporting character. I'm not the guy.
Hot D really planted their flag in this theme of stories with the introduction of the dagger, which is brand new for this show. And I really felt like this episode very specifically went hard on the theme of stories and who tells the story, with Alicent and Rhaenyra talking about how she's going to be remembered in history, and with Damon saying like, no, like this is still the story ends, and like Gwaine confronting Criston and kind of talking about like reputation and story and honor. Man, there was another moment. Rhaenyra standing amongst the scrolls, framed in the scroll holder at the end. Like, if anything could drive it home, that image is worth 1,000 words.
Beautiful shot. And that match cut to her overlooking the sea is brilliant. There's that cut is brilliant, beautiful, poignant storytelling. And then there's a cut earlier where Corlys says, there is another player or whatever, and then it cuts to Damon and he's coming through. I was like, dude, this needed like AC/DC over it. Like, he's been such a like, I wonder what's going on with him the entire time. Derek's here. Guys, why the hell is Otto in prison? We don't know.
No clue.
I wonder if Otto went and like was mad after he got fired, he punched somebody, and now he's been in jail this whole time. That's definitely a storyline that they're adding to. It definitely seems that he's going to get more.
I think that's, if I'm predicting, already putting my prediction hat on, I think that's a Daeron story, where we're going to build up to who this guy is. And obviously Tessarion, I believe we saw Tessarion. I don't know if that was who that was, but I believe that's what that is. I believe it's going to be like this, like, Daeron is coming in to save Otto, and this is to show like who this guy is. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I'd like that. That'd be cool. I like the little glimpse of the dragon, Tessarion, I believe. Tessarion, the blue dragon, really cool.
Tessarion, the blue queen.
So yeah, I enjoyed everything with Damon this episode. He's one of my favorite characters in TV, and I loved all that. I loved the little nod to Viserys that Rhaenyra gives, like once he dives into talking about prophecy, like it is serious and it is full of stakes, but she smiles because it was like for a brief second it took her back, like it took her back years in that moment. And whether he tells her about everything he's experienced, we don't know. Who knows if we'll ever know. He's definitely not telling Maesters or anybody, as evidenced by Fire and Blood, where he's like, yeah, some crazy chick there. I didn't talk to her. Like, you know, couldn't be me. I'm not listening to wenches and lowborns. But whether or not he tells her, I don't know, but it was really classy. And then this is apropos of nothing thematically or story-wise, but just a little aside about how Caraxes prefers to eat pig. I don't know why that was funny to me, but it was just like such a serious Damon thing. Like, actually, he prefers pigs. Like, oh, okay. Good to know. That's important, I guess, in some way. I mean, could that be, I can't believe I'm taking this line this seriously, but could that be a, like, further underlining, like, the beef between him and Aemond because they used pig imagery for everything that Aemond
the pink
was
dread.
like, yeah, the pink dread, and that Aemond is almost Damon in pig Latin, which I don't know if that's intentional, but it's just fun. Okay, so in terms of facts, since we've been on Damon a little bit, and you know the pirates are sort of removed from everything, I know this is intentional, but God, I wanted to punch Ulf. I just wanted to punch him the entire time. And I know we're supposed to want that. We're supposed to, they're doing a good job of what it's supposed to be, which is like, look at the way people react to power. Like Hugh is sort of ultra focused immediately. Is like, what do I do? And, you know, what do I do? The dad that lost a child to sickness, the dad that couldn't provide in his mind, like all these life's constantly been beating him down. Whereas Adam is very, you know, respectful and defers and like has the shipwrights mentality of like working on a team and quickly becomes sort of Rhaenyra's, like, you know, even before Jacaerys, like she doesn't ask Jacaerys to go to Harrenhal because he's the crown prince and he needs to be safe and all that. Adam is the guy. And Hugh reacts, unfortunately, the way I think a lot of people would react if they were a dragon rider, which is to immediately think that you are of high status.
I think it's more like if tomorrow when I went into work, I got a call that the board of Roystar Co. needed me to come in or they were going to lose their company, how would I act? And if I'm sitting at that boardroom table, I'd be saying, oh, you guys need me to save Roystar Co.? You guys, one, all suck. This is all your fault. Two, let me get some more of these little birds. I like these little birds. So I get it. I'm kind of off the sot pilled here. I'm loving it.
I echo Andy 100%. I'm with Ulf. He's from the hood. He just had a come up. Like he knows his worth. Like he's like, pay me my worth. Like this.
Give me the little birds.
Yeah, exactly. Like
little birds.
I have Silverwing. Have you heard of Silverwing? He's a badass, or she's a badass, and it's like, I'm gonna make sure to live this up. Like this is where I'm at right now. If anything, like I don't know. I feel like everyone should expect this, and everyone should kind of acknowledge it. I don't know. I'm with Ulf. I feel like
I get you.
I feel like there's one person I wanted to punch this episode. To be honest. It was Jace. I just could not stand the whole like I'm sick of these bastards, and I'm just like, bro, stop.
See, I disagree with Jace hate, not with you.
I can't with Jace, man.
But like I think the internet, and again, not Andres specifically, but the internet and over the past couple of weeks with Jace, I think people are missing the point. Which like there's so much like, why is he upset when this was his plan? This was not his plan. His plan was to take people from other great houses of Westeros to come in and potentially be a part of this and whatever and further alliances. He did not expect literally anyone to be able to show up and then act however, which is, it's his internalized biases and prejudices as a rich prince, no matter what. But I empathize with the guy when he talks about the whispers that he's heard his entire life, and now even Ulf immediately puts his hands on him and starts fucking rifling through his hair and everything, like, oh, your hair, it's as dark as they say. I would have been like,
it's different vibes, man. Different culture. Live it up. Dap him up. Be like, yeah, bro, you're part of the team. Like, I don't know. I just felt like maybe it is because that rich boy, like, discrimination against poor people of it all that made me want to punch Jace.
Sure.
I just felt like, yeah, man, if someone's being like, yeah, I'm part of the team, like, this is how I am, this is my personality. Like, sure,
he makes a valid point, I think, when he's like, you guys could stand to have a sense of humor. And like I have no problems with him wanting to eat well or anything, but like, I have problems with this woman who just granted you this power is saying, when we do this and this and this, then you guys will be able to be elevated. And like, maybe you should chillax, like we're at dinner and I'm the queen. And he's like, well, then make me a knight then. Like, that's when I would have been like, all right, you need to fucking chill.
I'm still defending him in that scene. I literally was like, he's not wrong. I mean, you want to call me manager? Like, that's not how a manager acts. Make me manager, bro. You haven't made me manager. Maybe I'll start acting like a manager once you make
the
me
managers one. Think they have the powers of gods. Ulf actually does. That's the thing.
I'm very team Ulf, and to bring it back to the Jace hate, like, I love when characters can be flawed that way, and I love how complex 100%. Jace is, because you look at Jace last episode 7, and I think he's fully in the right with the confrontation with Rhaenyra, and then you get to this episode and nothing's changed, but all of a sudden it's like, ooh, bad taste in my mouth with Jace here, though. And like, I love how
he got ignored. Because he got ignored to his face. He got ignored.
And like
after the claiming of Vermithor and Silverwing, it's not like she went to him and said, "Let's have a talk with the group or with me and you."
His concerns are fully valid. We have seen other dark-haired Targaryens in the history have their more precedented claim be rejected for a light-haired other relationship because the other person looks more like a Targaryen. It's the same reason why Catelyn Stark is like, yo, I do not like this Jon Snow kid because all of Ned's trueborn kids by me look like Tullys, and Jon Snow looks like a Stark. And what if when Ned is gone, what if they reject Robb because he looks like a Tully and they choose to follow Jon, even though he's a bastard, because he looks like a Stark? So like the concern is very rooted in like a Song of Ice and Fire lore. And like, yeah, Jace is kind of being a dick, but that doesn't mean his worries about these new guys are necessarily wrong. And at the same time, get Ulf some little birds and make him a knight.
Exactly.
Yeah. Get him
all
of
this absolutely. Is true. It's a complicated
these are all
world.
True points. And I don't think anything that Jace is saying about them as being low-born is right. But I do think Ulf should not be,
putting his feet up on your kitchen table.
It's kind of just like that. Yeah, it's sort of just like the, all right, well, is Ulf any better than any of the Greens that like don't respect a woman and don't care that like he's really not. He's a bullshitter that would constantly bullshit everybody around him, then just so happened to realize that his bullshit was true after he himself doubted it. And now he has gone fully down the path of, well, then I can do whatever I want. And this is just not really how it works. But I also acknowledge that I myself, being a bastard, am endeared to Jace in the same way that I'm endeared to Jon Snow and other characters, whereas I don't like, in general, shortcutty people that do nothing and then, act like they, it's like the born on third, but you act like you hit a triple. It's like, all right, you got very lucky, and credit to you. You showed up and you put your life on the line, and a lot of people died while you and Hugh lived. So
the man got dared into this. Like,
credit.
That's amazing.
Yeah. No, 100%. He had to actually put up and shut up. So, again, we don't want to get into spoilers too, which is the other thing where you start to inform.
Tongues there.
Yeah, you start to inform your opinion with other shit. But I liked the conversation with Bela. Bela has been a really steady presence throughout the season, which I appreciate. Somebody who's like, especially with her father, with who her father is, and like what her life has been like, marked by its own tragedies in season 1, has managed to be pretty level-headed and centered. So I really appreciated that. In terms of bastards and station and everything, I will tell you who I loved this episode, and that is Alyn. Now, Andres, I know you got to leave in a few minutes, so why don't you kick us off with this? Talk to me about Alyn's big monologue, where after a season of being the brother who was more stalwart and more like, all right, well, like I just got to keep my head down. I'm going to do honest work. Adam's the one who always wants for more. Adam's the one who's a little bit more expressive and emotional. He finally breaks here, and I think it was extremely realistic and fair.
Yeah, I feel like I have a lot of complicated thoughts, and I think I expressed them a couple episodes back about the way they're handling small folk, the way they're handling poverty, and I really do feel like we needed this because Alyn's speaking up as far as like, what does a boy do without food or who's hungry and knows who his father is and sees him with his son, his real son, and getting what he wants and expressing this, and the idea of him having this feeling of being rejected his entire life, and now suddenly there's this turn, there's this idea of acceptance coming in so late to the point that it feels so disrespectful, and I think Alyn needs to get this out of his system, and it's realistic. It feels very much realistic. It can't just be like, oh, we're in this war, let's get together. It also has to be like, we're in this war, let's get together, but we also have to talk this through. We have to hash things out because you haven't been there and you've chosen to not be there simply because we are bastard children and you could have been there in other ways. And I do feel like this scene nails that. And obviously all credit to the performance. I wish I knew the actor's name. I apologize.
I'll get it for you.
But he was great in this. And I do feel like performances matter in these type of scenes, especially because we don't see a lot of Alyn, throughout the season. So making sure he gets his moment to really get a speech, a moment to really express himself and show emotions and show range, and not just be the firm, quiet, Alyn that we've seen in the past episodes.
100%. This is Abubakar Salim, who was also in Assassin's Creed and Raised by Wolves and some other things.
He's incredible in Raised by Wolves. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
I haven't seen that, but I've heard it's really good.
It's really good. So good. It's insane, but it's really good. I love it. Very high.
I was excited. I felt excited by his performance in this scene, because I've really liked him and Adam the whole season. But it's hard to play. I say like I'm an actor, but I would imagine it's really hard to play years of anger and sadness while also maintaining the deferential respect to your liege lord. He can't raise his voice, he can't do certain things. He's the first mate too. It's a direct working relationship, and he has to try to be all these things at once, while also every line has to have the undercurrent of but you ignored me. It felt really personal, and even bringing Lucerys into it, and then when your next heir died, I was like, oh, he's right.
Yeah,
he's right. There, it was worse than just Rhaenyra and Helena. It was anyone but you guys. Man has been asking. Anyway, he's trying to pull another Rhaenyra. He was trying to get Bela to step up, which would have been a whole other thing. Corlys would rather add to the ongoing Westerosi gender politics controversy than acknowledge his sons. And I also texted you, Andres. I thought maybe we would see them get legitimized or something in this finale, and they're gonna expand that story out too and drag it, and we'll see what happens. But
even before they become legitimized, they're of Hull. They don't even have the recognized noble bastard last name of Snow or Sand or Rivers. They are first name where they live,
because they should be
they are
waters like Gendry, I guess.
Waters, I think it would be Waters, yeah. But they are unrecognized bastards, which means they are treated like even worse than Jon Snow was treated. They are treated as like lowborn common bastards rather than like Jon Snow got to live in the castle, you know. So like, yeah, they got it rough. And they're gonna have a long road to mending that relationship with Corlys if that's even possible. And I thought this was a really emotional scene to highlight that.
That's so interesting too that you bring that up, because I never, because our previous experience with that was Brienne of Tarth, and she seems to have, like, obviously she was bullied and like has personal hardship, but like she seemed like she was from a like medium house, maybe.
Brienne is
depends
noble.
on where you're from. Yeah, it depends on where you're from.
Just the Brienne of Tarth is just because like Tarth is cool and far away. It's not that she is lowborn or a bastard or anything like that.
Does she have a last name? I don't know.
Yeah, it is very commonly hinted at that she is actually a direct descendant of Sir Duncan the Tall.
That's badass.
Not fully confirmed, but it is
not yet, baby. 2026. 2026. Condal's like, I got you, Andy. I got you. Don't worry.
But yeah, she I'm blanking on her last name, but she does have a lord for a father. She was trained by the master at arms at the castle. Her father constantly threw balls for her to try and get her a husband, and all the boys would laugh at her except for Renly. Renly like danced with her, which is why she was like, yo, that's my boy, that's my king. And you can see why someone like Renly would be like relating to her and the struggle of like, you can't dance with who you want to, I can't dance with who I want to. Like, this all kind of sucks for the both of us. Let's like be friends.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the comments here. Andres, before you have to go, throw out anything that you are like itching to say, anything that is, because obviously we're going to have you back, and if we can get you for the season discussion, we absolutely will. There's no date on that, but I'll talk to you. But go for it.
Yeah. I guess what I'm itching to say is I'm excited for season 3. And I really I hope we get to see a lot of what they set up, and I think we will. And I'm definitely curious how they handle other storylines. I know we got a lot of teasing with the Rhaenyra stuff, but that's probably the one that I'm most honing in on, because I'm so curious how they're going to change up the Nettle storyline with Rhaenyra. So, yeah, that's the last thing I got to say. So
yeah, they spent that last bit of CG budget on the sheep stealer design, which was very cool. Very appropriately kind of dragon creeper, just like off to the side. I really like that.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. I appreciate it. Alden, I appreciate you. Andy, thank you so much. Have a good night, guys. Appreciate it.
Andres. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
So we talked a little bit about this. Little story thing that I wanted to point out that I forgot to say, but I had jotted down here. I love that Damon bending the knee to Rhaenyra and reaffirming himself to the cause is oriented in Harrenhal in the opposite direction of the Great Council. Because it's the same overhead shot.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the visual of well, the Great Council arguably got it wrong because of this gender shit. And now we have the blacks, despite their faults, are the progressive cause in this and are doing the thing that the Great Council refused to do. With Rhaenys and how Rhaenys hangs over the rest of the season, but particularly this episode, getting her front of mind again with the Queen Who Never Was, which is a show only thing, right? I don't think he ever. Yeah. How did you feel about that? I thought it was really classy.
I thought it was beautiful. The naming of ships is really important, and ships typically have a feminine name, and I did think it was kind of like a badass move that Corlys had named his ship after himself. That was something that I really liked about Corlys when, you're reading the book and it's like, yo, that's really cool of him. And then for the show to be like, yeah, but like what about some character growth, and him to name it after Rhaenys, I thought that was really, really beautiful.
Yeah, I thought that was really lovely, and again, a storyline that's been sort of accused by the internet of like, well, he's just standing at the docks. What is he doing? It's like, I don't know how much clearer it needed to be that he was grieving, but like, I'm glad that they then brought this out of like, he needed to find himself again, because he's been, since season 1 when he got injured and was walking around on a cane, like he's been removed from who he was.
Yeah, all of the characters this season who people complained about like just staying in one place, like Corlys standing at the docks or Damon and Harrenhal, it's like, yeah, these men are stuck. These men are emotionally broken and they're stuck. Yeah. And we are going to keep them in this one place until they can get past the trauma that is keeping them stuck. And I like that's how storytelling works. Like it's a metaphor, guys. Like they're using it as a device.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's hard out there in the world of media illiteracy. I want to talk about the whole idea of the innocence that comes up during the meeting with the Dragon Riders. When Rhaenyra sort of has to be the one that tells these people, innocence will die. That is a part of this. That's something that I think plays in interesting ways with the themes of class, and also how this, like, the sudden elevation of these people into importance. It's like, I guess when you're a noble, especially when you're in the royal family, it's like, and especially the royal family at war, the idea of death is sort of, not that it matters less, but you might be more desensitized to it because you're removed from it. Whereas like the lowborns have gone from like suffering because of the rest of the world's choices to now we're going to be making the choices that make people suffer. And that's sort of, that switch has happened for them in like 48 hours.
Yeah, to some degree, it's like she didn't recruit new dragon riders for you guys to not use the dragons, and you know, the dragons in Game of Thrones are commonly referred to as weapons of mass destruction with that you ride. But yeah, that idea of, if I'm Ulf or Hugh or Adam and you tell me to sack a city on a dragon, I'm not going to be concerned about or relating to the people in the keep that I destroy. I'm going to be thinking about the people in the streets that get burned. And I imagine that if we're already seeing some ruffled feathers around that table and people resenting being told what to do, that the second you tell them, hey, go burn Flea Bottom, how are they going to handle that?
Yeah, it's the, like Rhaenyra's entire position as heir and now queen, it is unprecedented, and so much of their leadership challenge is navigating these unprecedented situations. Like, how do we actually figure out what the next move is when it doesn't make sense? Talon's here. Hello, how are you? Jen's here talking about Ulf was sitting there acting as if it was his house. I thought, boy, you're gonna die. Yeah, I mean, maybe, Jace looked like he was in a tongue-taking mood throughout. Jace, you know what Jace's problem is? He never kisses his betrothed. That's his problem.
There has been this has been a surprisingly chaste season of HBO Game of Thrones.
Overall,
not a lot of sexy times this season, to be honest. I guess there was that one episode earlier in the season, but
there was sex earlier in the season. Obviously, Rhaenyra and Mysaria,
a kiss, but no,
they got a kiss, but no, they didn't get to. Guy had to walk in and start talking about dragons. Got to ruin everything. I wonder. Yeah, I mean, I wonder if it's a situation with Jace and Bela. Like, I wonder if it's intentional, of like they are still navigating. I mean, they've known each other for a long time though. Like, I just wonder how they view each other. Like,
I was about to say, it's almost like they're cousins, and then I
lovers?
realized that they kind of are cousins.
That is because they are. They are cousins and step siblings.
Step siblings, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, Targ problems. They really do just be like that sometimes. In any case, as we take a second to wonder about what it's like.
Incredibly awkward. Yeah, incredibly awkward. Helena was fired tonight. I agree, Talon. This was Helena's episode.
Incredible performance. Andy, why don't you start us with that? And we talked about it in relation to Damon, of like Helena, for in whatever way, as a seer in her own right, taps into the vision, is a part of molding it with Alice. Is that's all so vague, but like, how did you feel about that? How did you feel about her standing true and refusing to join the fight?
Fandom, especially the book reader fandom, tends to separate what is commonly referred to as dragon dreams, which is like Targaryens who see the future. And their visions are always very specifically only about House Targaryen, versus green seers, which is like children of the forest and first men magic, which is like what Bran does,
right? And sort of like the like all, what is it, like all squares are rectangles type thing, but
like, but not all rectangles.
Like some people have, like Brendan Rivers is both, and the implication is that Damon could be both, or maybe it's just because of the location and the like a Virgins in the Force type thing. Like maybe it's just because of where he is.
Anyone in the books can have visions around heart trees. Like Jaime Lannister has a green seer dream because he sleeps on a weirwood stump. I don't think Jaime is a green seer. I think he slept on a weirwood stump and had some trippy dreams. I think that's kind of what's going on with Damon, and also Alice is like very clearly projecting into his stuff. But like Helena throws a lot of questions into the lore in really fun ways and really compelling ways. And she just felt so powerful this episode when she like confronted Damon, and then also like being kind of this representation of like the innocence when it comes to Aemond, and Aemond wanting to force her to fight, kind of being the catalyst then for Alicent to be like, yo, like, fuck this, we're out. Like we're going to Rhaenyra and fixing this, because like Aemond is out of control. I do think Helena would be a bad person to have on a battlefield. She does not seem to like loud noises. She does not seem to be a violent person. She loves her little bugs. She takes good care of all of her pets in her menagerie. Like, that is not someone you want riding a nuke.
No, and she doesn't, as even Rhaenyra says, like, she never took to riding. She doesn't really know how or want to know how. And she like finds her strength almost in this moment with Aemond, where she's like, and what would you do if I say no? Like, you're gonna burn me? And he tries to deny it, and she holds him to it, and he doesn't. He knows he's caught, you know, because it's like he's the only she never bullied him, and he always kind of like not liked her, but thought he would be better for her than his brother when they were little, and is now almost like he hasn't, like, nobody's checked him in that way with that level of truth.
The question kind of becomes, if I'm Aemond and she refuses to join the fight, you can't use Dreamfire without a rider if the current rider won't play ball. And you know there are silver-haired bastards running around Flea Bottom. Like, do you kill your sister?
Yeah. Do you go to all that work
and then start throwing bastards at Dreamfire and see if one sticks? Like,
and the problem there is that he doesn't know what we know, which is that Aegon and Larys are on the outs, which, like, we'll talk about. But Aegon is healing more every day and is talking more now and everything. And it's like, if you go to this plan of like kill her and try to make something up as you go along, you're just gonna do that under Aegon's nose while he's awake now. And like all that's stopping Aegon right now really is leg injuries at this point, it seems. not so much anymore that he is unable to communicate. Like Aemond's time is running out for this rampage that he's on.
He knows it. Like, he feels so unhinged and untethered this episode. I mean, he like completely destroyed a city just out of spite. Like, he has lost it, and him getting aggressive with Helena, I think, was a really clever way to show how far he's willing to go, and to also raise the question of like, will he go further next season?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love the way that you and Mitchell played it too, because he's talked about how he's gone to like Michael Myers and other like horror characters for Aemond inspiration of like the inevitability and the quiet and the moving, the way he walks and carries himself. But here he was yelling and he was grabbing people and he was like more visibly expressive. He was talking more, saying more than just a few lines here and there. He's off his rocker in a certain way, and again, the theme of the season of people becoming what they're supposed to be later on definitely came to a head with him. You've got to go. Any last thoughts for you on the finale thus far?
So I gotta check my count again, but my last thought is season 1 covered roughly, if my memory serves, about 70 pages of Fire and Blood, and season 2 was, I think, about 25 pages of Fire and Blood. And so just like, if you're feeling bummed, if you're feeling like you missed certain stuff that you were hoping to see this season you didn't get to, like, I think if they're slowing down, that's okay with me. If that means that we're gonna have 4 seasons of Hot D or 5 seasons of Hot D, I rather them take it slowly and at a pace where they feel like they can really chew on things than speed run it, which I think the biggest complaints against Game of Thrones, especially the later seasons, is they move too quick. So if the creators of Hot D are saying, hey, we're going to slow it down and really sit with the themes and the characters and do some heavy character work, I'm on board for that. I do wish this was a second to last episode and not a finale, but I still really love this season. So I'm a happy A Song of Ice and Fire fan tonight.
Yeah, we're gonna get you back for season discussions, and we got to do some magic only discussions and really dig into all that. I know you got to go.
Yeah. Last thing I'm gonna say, Gwaine.
Oh, go ahead.
I love.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say, give me 3 to 5 words about Criston Cole and Gwaine. They better kill Criston Cole next season. Yeah, I love that Gwaine was just like, I've had it with this motherfucker. Like,
yeah,
I had it with this.
I have so much to say about that scene. I adored that scene. God, I could talk for an hour about just those 2 characters in that scene. They're like, for people saying that, like, oh, nothing happened this season, nothing happened this episode. Like, are you kidding me? Did you watch the same show? Like, the character work that Criston Cole went through and Gwaine went through from when we saw them at the start of the season to this confrontation of Criston Cole being like, yeah, fucking kill me. Like, I hate my life and myself.
Death and would Gwaine, be better than this.
And Gwaine being like, the worst punishment I can give you is to like just let you stew in this. Oh man. Gwaine being like, what a horrific outlook. Like,
Gwaine literally
bleak.
Had him at the point of the sword, was like about to start a fight, and then ends the scene with like, I guess I'll sit here too.
Brutal. Oh yeah. Loved everything about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I still think it was a great season. I think this was maybe would have worked better in a different place, episodic wise, but I love the episode.
Hell yeah.
Anyway, great time to be a Song of Ice and Fire fan. Can't wait for A Night of the 7 Kingdoms. I can't wait to talk more about the show with you. And thank you, everyone, hanging out in the chat. I've loved this community. Thank you for bringing me on so much this season. I had a ball.
Of course. It's been a blast. It was just a great thing that you were able to come on so much, that you were available. You're one of my favorite people to talk to in general and about this. And I'm excited for more as we get into the off season, and then also Rings of Power, which you are also welcome to jump on for whenever. So we'll catch you next time, Andy. I love you.
See you guys.
Soon. Goodbye. Yes, thank you, Andy. We'll talk more right now, though, with one of my very favorite people arriving exactly when someone else was leaving. It's like with no planning too. Like the Knights of the Vale, just showing up exactly when I need him. One of my favorite people from the Imperial Senate podcast, the host of that show of the Yum Nub Club, works with me around Octo, and is always here on Casterly Talk as well. It is Nikki Kumar.
Howdy.
And now the rains we pour is all. A lot happened.
Yeah.
I would like to draw your attention to some text messages that we sent each other a few days ago.
Go for it.
Because there were some leaks. Which we do not condone, and we avoided things, and you ran into some stuff that I did not run into, and we talked about it in vague things, and I said, let me put this down in the record to sort of, just predict what I think. And it turns out a few of these were true at the same time. I originally predicted we're going to see, quote, the Night King or some such shit. That was there. Maybe a Walker. That was indeed true. Maybe even Icy Viserion. He was not yet icy, but he was dead. So that happened.
And alive as a baby.
Yeah, and alive. And then second thought, Dany in some form.
Yeah.
Third thought, I said the Mad King or Rhaegar being killed, something to signal the end of the family. That did not happen. But then number 4, I wrote maybe a big wild card, like something Brendan related. Oh shit. I mean, he was just in the episode. And then the 5th one did not happen. But we talked about it a little bit already here. Feel free, unburden yourself about what has been seen.
I was like logging onto this thing, and I was like, "This is gonna suck" because I'm kind of speechless. I don't even really know where to begin. It was just like it was one of those ones where, I had caught a few things because it had leaked all over TikTok, so I kind of knew bits and pieces of what was gonna happen, but so like I knew Alicent was coming.
Right. I think I knew from like way back someone said they meet twice this season, and that was just like in the back of my mind.
Yeah. And from that I was like, interesting, but I didn't know why. I didn't really expect it to be like let me out. And that was funny, or not funny, but like just wild. I do think it's funny that her and Criston are kind of like in the same place of like we just went out, and he's doing it in the way he thinks a knight should, of like just let me go out and blaze, like, and she's just like, yo, I'm done. And so like, that scene was amazing. It was shot like perfectly. Those like profile close-ups.
Oh, they're stunning.
When she's like, I need Aegon. God damn, yeah. Like just so many things like that. I was just like blown away by. And
the cuts of the ending match cut of behind the bookshelves, and like placing her in all the story, and placing her in the histories, and then Alicent in this freedom that like she tasted and really wants, but like, can she have that? Like, apparently not without a major price. But like, where's the major price? He's in the fucking cart. Yep. He's riding away.
That's gonna be delightful. Somebody's gonna show up and be like, "Okay, where's your part of the deal?" I don't know.
He escaped. Who did he escape with? A guy who walks very slowly.
So you're telling me let them escape? 2 guys who can't walk with any amount of speed. Somehow
they bamboozled.
Got out. Someone needs a talking to. Is just Orwell
worst Kingsguard of all time?
Is he just like, is the Grand Maester just smuggling everybody left and right? Like, is he just
Mr. Smuggler? I wonder if he was part of it for sure.
I mean I don't even, again, it's like because I texted you sort of teasing the concept Damon wasn't done tripping. And just everything about that was wild. And I still don't even know if I'm like super pro or not, like against it. I think it's always weird when you start prophesizing on people. Like you gotta be careful in terms of just like what you reveal. I think there's a thing where it's like we have to remember Damon knows what we know but doesn't know it the way we know it, kind of thing.
That's exactly what I was getting at earlier. He sees the remixed version of several things tailored to motivate him to crystallize what he's been learning about himself. And already I'm on air right now, and already online I've already glimpsed the, you see, this is Dany, the prince that was promised. That was true the whole time. That's what they're saying and everything. And it's like, they're not making a determination really at all. It's just, he's seeing late stage Song of Ice and Fire stuff with the Walkers and Dead Viserion and the actual coming of the destruction, but also early stage Ice and Fire stuff with Dany's 3 hatchlings and her sitting after the fire, and like it's mixed up. The meteor, so it's like it's mixed up, but it's also the stuff that would speak to him. If he saw Jon Snow, what is this dark-haired, Night's Watch, bastard really going to indicate to him? Like what is that gonna? Okay, you're showing me a northerner. Like it has to be the stuff that would actually push him. Who is that in the tree in the vision? Looked like Targaryen hair. Correct. That would be Brynden Rivers, Blood Raven in the books, but Three-Eyed Raven in the show. Which is the same thing, but I don't think the show ever uses Blood Raven. Remember.
You would have seen him end of season 4 and season 6.
He's Max von Sydow in season 6. Season 4, he looks very different. That was something that they definitely walked back a little bit when they were like, "Oh, he's got to do dialogue and stuff. We should get a great actor and just do it a little bit differently." But
which again is like it's also a weird thing to like. Basically, the short version of this is George R. R. Martin's books treat him as a character very differently. So it's almost like, almost in the context of shows, somebody being like, "So who is that?" I'm like, "Oh, it's that guy." And they're like, "Oh, that's it." And I would get that, I would understand that as a perspective if you're coming at it from just a show thing. So I think I think that call was definitely like that. These are the nerds. Like again, it's the thing where it's like the fans are making the thing, right? And I think these fans are more in tune with like the mystical side than perhaps Benioff and Weiss were, and so they don't mind jumping into these kind of pools and getting a little weird with it. I think I do like the idea that Condal and or Hess are like uber Daenerys fans because they already shouted her out in season 1. now she got the shout out here. I think that's fun. Maybe their little way of just throwing some love back.
And I think that like the hardcore like cut and dry interpretations of it, like that's not what any of the visions have been trying to really say. And I don't think that showing Daenerys here is like, see, it all leads to like her and like yes it does, but like I just think that like there was one tweet that like kind of annoyed me, which was like, see, it was her, like it's not about Jon Snow, and it's like, oh, it's about both. Like that's the fact that they could both fulfill this is the point,
right.
And the fact that they both meet this criteria is the point. The fact that they both defy death is the point. The fact that they both unite people is the point. Like their resumes are so similar for a reason, but what I think that indicates is that he doesn't see it in the order that we saw it. Like you said, like it means something a little bit different to him than it is to us. Like we know that saga sort of, it doesn't begin with it, but like the first chapter of that saga ends with the dragons returning. But what he's seeing is we will be threatened by this great evil, but House Targaryen endures. This woman that I can't see her face, like baby dragons are going to return, even though I've seen this big dead one. Might not even realize that one of those is the same. That's not important for him. And then he sees Rhaenyra on the throne, and I think that motivates him to be like, Rhaenyra is the path to fighting this great evil, and maybe who knows what he thinks literally, like maybe that's a Rhaenyra daughter, maybe that's it doesn't fucking matter. It's just like, you guys have a part to play, and things will come back again. Things will reemerge. You need to stay the course with who's on the throne here, though, for that to happen. Now, he might have a very like simplistic, more straightforward view of that, thinking it's all in the immediate, like, oh, if I stick with Rhaenyra, we can fight this evil. And I don't know. He even says to her, like, I don't know how we're supposed to. We can't beat it or something like that. But
he doesn't know when.
He doesn't know when or anything. Neither does anyone.
Like, could be 50 years. Could be,
Yeah, it's almost like he's reading it as Rhaenyra is the path to getting through this, whereas really Rhaenyra is the path you need to take so that it can all happen the way it's supposed to, because like I mentioned earlier in the episode with Andy and Andres, like Game of Thrones' view on time is very like, it's all set. If anything influences anything, it's always causal loop stuff. Like you need to follow Rhaenyra because you have to follow Rhaenyra because this is all set in stone.
It isn't like Team Black gets us down here and Team Green doesn't, right? It's like, as you're saying, like it has to be bigger. It's more, everything needs to happen the way it needs to happen, kind of thing.
Yeah, and this is what you're supposed to do, because it's like, I said earlier, like this is not Kelvin track. It's not, if he doesn't bend the knee to her, then the vision comes undone. Like, no, it just is. And
whereas he probably doesn't see that, which is fine. He doesn't
He doesn't need to.
Yeah,
he doesn't need to. That's the brilliance, I think, of using audience expectation and audience knowledge in a thing like this. If you haven't seen Game of Thrones, it works in that he's getting what he needs to get, because we've heard about the dagger. We've heard about what Viserys has said. One of my favorite moments is when Rhaenyra says that he sounds like Viserys when he comes in talking about it, and like it kind of sent her back in time. She kind of smiles.
It's a really awesome turn from the season 1 finale when she's like, everything on the dagger, it's us, and he's like, what on earth are you talking about? And he gets pissed about it because he doesn't know what she's talking about. And now it's like, now come looped around, and he's the believer essentially.
100%. That's a great call. That's a great call. And then even in the his early visions of like, he sees another man with white hair, and like, he kind of maybe is Viserys, and then like, no, it's this weird him, but also Aemond. And but then the thing here of like Helena sort of ambiguously also perceiving this
that was
from wherever
the weirdest
she
part
is.
To me. Like, again,
weird.
Not against it. Just I have no idea what the hell is going on.
Yeah. Andy was talking about that too, of like, and you'll know this as a books guy. Like Andy was saying, in the books there is like the two. Well, there are many schools of magic. There's small ones like the Lord of Light people and all that, but like the two like core ones are like Targaryen, Valyrian magic, and what they have, and like the dragon dreams being specifically about the future as is relevant to their family, and then obviously old magic and like the North,
Children of the Forest
and all that. And this is like them sort of being like, there are people that have a foot in both, and we've seen that because that's what Brendan Rivers becomes. But this is sort of expanding it to like, it's not just him. There are people whose sight is so great that it transcends these different schools, and again, it's such a conversation starter more than anything else.
It's almost like
who would have thought?
It's like one of the like in an imaginary world where Ryan Condal's our neighbor, and I can go outside and like knock on his door and be like, what's going on? He'd be like, ooh, I don't know. Like it's very much like that. Where it's just like it's very loose and just fluid, and we're supposed to not get it, but also be just like super intrigued. And yeah, I always wonder. I mean, it's like because there is there's still a weirwood tree in King's Landing, right?
Yes.
So it's like maybe Helena has been, eating some sap off that thing, but yeah, just for like years, she's just been like, yeah. So I don't know. It's very strange, but in a cool way. In a way, I trust them to explore. I think that's the biggest thing, where it's like every time there's sort of a twist in, just how we perceive lore. It's like, at least for me, I'm like, I trust them. They'll bring it
clearly
home.
have such a love for it. Like, and it's also, on a real world note, which we'll talk about in the season discussion and future things. And it's like, much like the opening of the show with the Daenerys Targaryen name drop, or making the dagger connection to the song, like, they know the position they're in of franchising this thing, and they have to do the Star Wars thing of this is one story. Like, it would not surprise me at all if this casting for Brendan Rivers is now consistent in any way that they can use that actor. It would not surprise me at all if whatever their version of Dunk and Egg is in Night of the Seven Kingdoms, it gets further into this territory.
Plays into this stuff,
yeah. Like, whatever Egg story might have had, probably gonna have, like, a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, I was sort of talking the other day to you. I won't say about what, because I don't want to get into it, but like just in terms of elements of their story and where they might brush up with this magic, it's like, you really get the impression that it's going to be a lot more hand in hand with sort of what we see here.
Yeah, that was interesting. This green man by the tree is Damon himself seeing himself. That was interesting. Yeah, it's like had antlers or something, like from a distance, like just kind of pokes down. That was cool. Yeah, we could talk about the Damon vision stuff forever. I think it's extremely interesting. It's very compelling, and it must have been like, for Condal. I've referred to Condal as sort of like Martin's Filoni in a lot of ways. In terms of how he sort of fit this role, that it's co-created by, like, not that there's the narrative of like, he hates Dan and Dave, and it's like, I don't think that's true. I think he was frustrated by the reality of the whole situation, as I'm sure everybody was, but like, never forget that, like, he literally quizzed those guys to be able to play in his world and like sanctioned everything, and so whatever. But Condal has that nerdiness and everything to him that is different. Making this whole sequence must have been like, whenever someone gets to shoot Darth Vader nowadays, or things like that, where it's just like, holy shit. Like, at this point, Daenerys emerging from the flames was what, 2011?
Yeah,
like that's already a decade plus old pop cultural iconic moment that even if people didn't stick with the show, they remember that,
right. Yeah, I mean, it must have been a real like blast to pull out the White Walker suit.
Yeah.
It's just been like, oh my god. I like how Matt Smith in the making little inside the episode thing, he's like, I see a White Walker, which is awesome.
Oh, that's cool. I haven't seen that yet. That's awesome. I gotta check that out. We talked a little bit about it before you got in, of the Criston Cole stuff. I'm curious if you had any other thoughts on him. He says Alicent saved his life twice, once from himself, which I remember he was going to stab himself. And he says once from the headman's axe. Is that implying that they were getting ready to kill him for what he did to Joffrey at that wedding? Or is it because of his murdering Beesbury?
No, it's the conversation he has with her before that, where she's like, so, you're like Rhaenyra's sworn sword, and she's been like acting sus. What's going on with that? We got some rumors. And then he's like, I did it. Like, it was me. I'm sorry.
That's right.
And then he's like, right, and she just lets him go. Right, this is all in that same episode.
Yeah,
it's really the foundation of their whole relationship.
He confessed to the shit he was not being accused of. Yeah,
brilliant, like just brilliant scene.
I forgot about that. Yeah, that's great.
And so yeah, I think that's the headman's. What is it? Headman's axe.
Headman's axe.
So like her letting that slide, and then the sort of whatever he was gonna do after the wedding.
Yeah, after the
wedding. Like seppuku. Like that what he's doing.
Cut to me yelling at the TV. Just let him go. We don't need him. But yeah, how did you feel about sort of his arc and where it leaves him here of like death would be better than this? We're marching toward our own annihilation. Fabian Frankel is really good at delivering lines with the just like utmost depression.
Dude, yeah. Which I think is what's so I love how much Rook's Rest just screwed him. Because we always know Criston, we've watched his his journey so far, and it's like the realization of what they're now sort of beholden to, and the fact that has so rocked him where he's just like the whole thing is it's done though. Like as far as I'm concerned. It's just like fascinating and yeah, like you have all sorts of layers into this where so much of his story is about guilt, right? Like and what you're supposed to do with it. And so it's like it starts with he and Rhaenyra had their night together. Is it supposed to like be assumed that was the only one, or were they?
I think so.
Had multiple, I don't remember. But the fact being, he was like, look, we'll run away, we'll get married, it'll be awesome. That's how I get my honor back, because I goofed. I screwed it. Like literally and figuratively. Like I screwed the whole thing up. So if she goes away with me, we get married, it's all great. That's how I get it back. So when she says no, he's like, but yeah, this was my way back, to whatever the light. And so that rejection just, we know the soup that it gets mushed into. And so just this idea of guilt all the way through, and just being, he knows the shame he's bringing to his position, so he takes it out on Eric. We've seen all this. And then so for him to go through this whole like just militant repentance, and then see Rook's Rest and be like, well, none of it matters. Like, I just suffered. I just made myself suffer in every way for like 15 years, 20 years, whatever.
For nothing, really, yeah.
And we are just dust when the dragons dance. Like it's so depressing, and it's wonderful that Gwaine is like, the line about like, what a horrible way to look, or
bleak philosophy.
Bleak philosophy. But it's true. I mean, it's like, at least, when you're.
And Criston says, I have no philosophy. I used to have this. It's his sword,
Yeah.
And he continues to try to like polish it a little, but it's like Gwaine is so deflated. Gwaine wanted the smoke. Like he came in like, that guy's got my sister's handkerchief. Like I'm about to. It confirms what he's already been suspecting, and he's gonna throw down. He's got the sword at his neck, and then by the end of it, Gwaine's like, "Man, you're bumming me the fuck out."
He's beaten down too, because he's what does he say? I'm realistic or something. I forget what the line he says. Like I'm pragmatic or something. Like he gets it in the end. Like. This is what it means to be a soldier in this kind of war. Like they can sit there and say, well, we go here, blah, blah, blah. Tactics, awesome. Let's hit it. As soon as the dragon comes in, it's all irrelevant, right? Like, I mean, we know this from Loot Train, right? Like,
yep,
we make the defensive line. We can hold the cavalry up. Yeah, no, like, it's gonna suck, but we can do it. And then, right? And it's over. Like, so it's just even these guys who are seasoned, you know, or not seasoned, but like, have been raised on military strategy, and this is how you fight a war. If we were ever to have a war to fight, like, they're all useless because, once the fire comes, like, it just does not matter. And so, I think just specifically for Criston, it's like it's very fascinating to see a guy who, through every terrible means, trying to claw back at whatever sense of honor or righteousness he thinks he can get back, and then just to experience an event where he's like, literally everything we want or do does not matter because, you know, the dragons are gods, right? It's a very, like, I don't know, like, pit in your stomach type situation where you're just it's very grim. It's like, it's the way we feel when we, like, look at the entertainment industry. We're just like, we're like, why
it would be better to die, honestly.
Why are we even trying? But yeah,
AI is the dragon.
He's always been fascinating, and just to see that complete surrender to, like, nihilism, it was pretty epic.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about Aegon and Larys a little bit more, because that's something we didn't touch on before you got here, and we touched on a little bit of, like, the comedy of, like, these two just, like, disappearing. But how do you feel about Larys's point of view on everything, and the points that he's making to try to motivate Aegon to let the war play out between Aemond and Rhaenyra and try to come in later? You know, obviously it plays into the ongoing trend of, like, this being a big opportunist character, him sinking his teeth into Aegon. But I thought it was interesting that Aegon does try to show some fire. Like, he tries to, as much as he can, you know, from his bed, like, well, all right, well, just, like, get me to the throne. I'll sit on the throne and we'll arrest this fucker. Like, he does try to, like, assert himself a little bit, but, like, Larys is right of, like, okay, sure. So, like, we arrest and take out Vhagar's rider, then no Vhagar, or a Vhagar that's just doing whatever. Like, what is, like,
like, either way, you're screwed.
Yeah, Aegon's just not a long game thinker, and he doesn't have any long game options.
No, except one, which is
disappearing. Yeah, except disappearing.
And so, I mean, that's the point of Larys, right? Like, in so many ways, Larys is just, like, he's shitty Tyrion, right? Like, he gets it, and he gets it because he has had to put up with being perceived as less than. Like, I mean, the perfect, you know, the Tyrion line that speaks to everything is, you know, the cripples, bastards, and broken things. And you know, love it or hate it, Larys sure does fit in the category. And, you know, this is the universe's story about those people in so many ways. And so, again, it's the same thing. It's almost like he's giving Aegon the crappy version of, you know, wear it like armor and then it can never be used against you. Like, accept who you are. People will and double down on it, and people will overlook you, and, you know, you live to fight another day, as I have. You know, I was the loser son, and look where I am now, essentially, right? And so, in that way, it's like it just, Larys does see the board. I don't want to say he's the smartest green, but he's probably definitely the most, like, you know, he read the source material character on green.
100%. I also just think the dialogue too in the scene, particularly with Aegon, like, it's meant to be, like, gross and, like, meant to, like, put you on the back foot and, like, kind of be off-putting when he starts talking about his dick, but like, it is like, it does serve, I think, the undertone of the conversation of like, he's trying to emphasize to Larys like how much worse it is than even Larys perceives. And I think he's trying to like he's conveying a level of vulnerability that he normally doesn't.
Yeah. I think it's also like
he has nothing else.
Also for him, because Larys's whole point is like, no, live to fight another day. And he's like, I don't want to. Like, what about this makes you think I want to?
And also, what future is there? Like, everything is so about family and children and all this stuff. Like,
right.
He's only got the daughter now, and it's like, and I literally can't do anything that I can't reproduce. So,
yeah, you can't do that. It really is a case of like, so you win everything. Let's say you win everything. Everyone else dies. Like, what do you do? Like, who does it go to?
Yeah.
So I guess he's putting all his eggs on the Darren basket, but yeah, it's just very. It's one of those things where it's like he's so broken when somebody's trying to make a plea to like keep going. It's like, yeah, like, keep going with what? Like, what is there to keep going for? So it's like, yeah, Aegon's balancing that, and then ultimately he leaves, and I don't know. I guess we don't really see the thing that like completely switches. I don't actually remember how that scene ends. I don't remember if it ends with him.
He doesn't really affirm or say he's going for it or anything.
Yeah.
Last thing we got to talk about, we'll just hold off for just a second. We got to talk about Alicent, of course, and the meeting at the end. But I do want to bring it up because we talked about it a little bit before you got here, but to get your thoughts. Otto's finally back. And where the hell is he? It seemed like, when Aemond told Larys, called him a toad, and told him to go send for him, that they were like, okay, I'll go send for him. He's at Old Town, right? Yeah, he's at Old Town. Then there was, updates, and it was like, well, there's actually been no word from Otto Hightower. We're not sure where he is. And now it's like, is Otto Hightower in trouble? He looked like he was captured or at least in prison. What was your read on that small little appearance?
I really had no earthly idea. Like,
no.
Again, it's like initially I was like, oh, are they like smuggling him back to King's Landing? Like, why would they do that? Like, they control it. So it's like, yeah, gosh, I really do not know. And that's like a crazy thing. Like, based on books, I can be like, well, he should be here, but that doesn't feel relevant at this point. So yeah, that's a delightful mystery they cooked up out of nowhere. Because he looked like he was in like a cell, but also it kind of looked like a ship. Like, to me, I perceived it as like a ship like a galley cell.
Yeah, maybe.
I gotta watch it again to see if like the light is swinging or something. But
for sure,
but yeah, like, gosh, I really have no idea where they're going with this one.
Neither do I.
I don't think there's a way to know. I like, you could scour every page of Fire and Blood, and I don't think it would hint at anything. So they're going for something here.
Yeah, so, yeah. Completely original. Last thing, and then again, everybody watching, listening, thank you so much for hanging with us for the whole season, but especially tonight. There will be more in a season discussion, and then obviously stuff after that as well. Lots to talk about. I want to end with this discussion of Alicent and Rhaenyra's scene here, in a show that is so defined by them as, if you had to pick two main characters, it really is them since the beginning. By the sheer nature of the story, they can't share a lot of screen time anymore, so they created these two meetings that I think are perfectly placed and just immaculately written and performed. There's so much going on here. There's a little bit more, obviously, ability to speak freely, it being a Dragonstone instead of the Sept, and there's a little bit more fire to the way Rhaenyra is approaching her this time, because they had this revelation in the first conversation about the dream, and then nothing changed and things just got worse, etc., etc. Now we have here Rhaenyra sort of being like, well, what do you want? You're full of shit. Like, you know, calling her out on certain things. Like when she mentions like that she has a lover, and she's like, oh, you know, you could take a lover now. Great. Thing that I loved here when she says specifically, like, you had virtue as your banner, and Alicent counters with like, yeah, it was in defiance of you. Like they are so intrinsically connected. Every single thing about them is in conversation. And this was just like the perfect way to emphasize that before they once again level up to the next versions of themselves, and to the next level of the conflict. I thought it was beautifully done. And I think that Alicent realizing that she is willing to make these moral compromises, like what she agrees to here, in the name of like a greater freedom, in the name of something bigger for peace, in the name of peace for Helena and for Jaehaera, like all these things that she realized just by having hit bottom and like having tasted what she perceives as like freedom. And then it encapsulates with the come with me, which was so like that for her, I think is the most like honest maybe she's ever been. It was in that, just like those 3 words, like come with me might as well be I love you in this context. Wild stuff. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, it was a brilliant scene, and again, like it just the way Alicent again sort of mirrors that Criston Cole just like descent into like what are we doing? It doesn't seem to matter. I think it's interesting that it comes from the perspective of non-dragon writers. I think that's kind of like a fun thing, because it's like almost like the dragon writers are so detached from the reality of it. Like they're so they become that, you know, the hubris, the ego of writing these beasts. They don't perceive these things the way, you know, the people who get stuck on the ground do. As Aemond makes the point of you know, Mother doesn't ride a dragon. She doesn't she doesn't get it. But yeah, just the idea that, you know, again, it's like it's similar where it's just like everything I've done, everything I thought was the way forward. I thought it was right to do this. I thought sticking to our what I think forget the paths laid out for us. I think she said something like that. Thinking that was the way forward, and then just being shown it doesn't matter. And Alicent has seen that not just from the dragons, but from also the power structure, right? Like that. Yeah. This is her. This like her whole thing is, like you could say she's just as qualified as anybody, of course, to call shots for Team Green. Yeah. And of course, the people who didn't want the woman to be queen don't want to hear from the woman. So
shocking as this may be,
yeah, who would have thought?
And even her own children, which was the final sort of nail. Like, yeah, her father, yes, the other counselors, Criston, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then both of her sons, in different ways and at different times, have been like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, and that line from Helena, which was just so like brilliantly placed and said, of like, I think I was happier before I was the queen, right? Like just that sort of like realization of like, what if it didn't have to be this way?
Yeah.
And then Aemond comes in, you know,
yeah,
swinging and
guns blazing, because he's so
getting you know, really physical with Helena and all that. And yeah, no, it's really like, it's a breaking point I never thought Alicent reached. Because again, it's like we have her characterization in Fire and Blood. To my memory, again, I haven't read it in a while, so if somebody else is more into it at this point, chime in, but to my memory, like, she's not well characterized at this point. And it is almost just like you get that she steps back because other people are in charge. So now it's like the show is able to play with the emotions of that, and it took her to this place of like, I can facilitate this if you just let me go, like let me out. Which again, I think it's just so fascinating how similar her and Criston are at this point in terms of like, I'm just ready to be out, and I think hers is much nicer, much more peaceful.
For sure.
But like, it's the same thing, and it's also tracks so well with the fact of both of them being so guilt-ridden, and all that. And so I never thought she'd reach this place. So it's just such a it's a great move on the part of the show. Again, it's that ability to take things from the book and just sort of stretch them out and play with them in ways that we really didn't think was the case. I mean, like, it's the same with Damon and the tree and the vision, right? It's like, nothing to say that couldn't have happened in the book, but I don't think it did. And so just the way they are able to play with these characters and really sort of give them a different kind of wingspan through these pivotal moments. It's just super fascinating. And I think it was really like difficult actually to watch Alicent go through that mental calculus of like, I got to give my son up. Like, I just do.
And bringing the phrasing a son for a son into it was yeesh. That just like, it makes your skin crawl because of what you know and what we know, and
it's such a, and like it's a what's like Rhaenyra is beast moding, right? Like she's beasting her because it's like
full fucking beast
because she has every card. I think Emma says in that inside the episode, like, it's like getting a gift when you already feel like you have everything. And you're sort of like presented with this, because again, that's Rhaenyra's issue is, do we really have to like fire and blood the whole place just to win this? And so for Alicent to now be offering this backdoor sort of almost peaceful transition of sorts, like it's very challenging. And I think Rhaenyra, maybe she's like, since she doesn't quite know what to do with this, maybe I think she may be diverting that into being more aggressive on Alicent.
I think so too. I think it's resentment because Rhaenyra tried this with her, not in these explicit terms because it couldn't be the same plan, but she tried to form a path to peace in conversation and was only met with, "Oh, I got the prophecy information wrong."
And too far gone. It's too far gone.
Yeah,
like,
nothing's gonna change. Too far gone.
Yeah.
And now that it's gotten more stressful on the green side, so I get Rhaenyra's anger there, but also there's also Rhaenyra as this like newly minted head of state, sort of having to be like, realistically though, even if a head's got to roll, and she says like publicly, like she's also thinking about what matters. Like she's just gonna get Aegon, because I think Alicent says Aegon would bend the knee. And it's like, no, he wouldn't. Like we just know he wouldn't, and we know that like Alicent says like she still has some control, and it's like, you don't. Like, we know this. And Rhaenyra sort of checks her on that, because if you had this control that you think you do, if he would listen like you're suggesting he might, you would not be here.
Right.
And I think it speaks to Rhaenyra sort of stepping up in that way, thinking strategically a little bit more. And also, this is also Rhaenyra with Damon back in the fold. This is the way that they affect each other, of like, she tempers him and he emboldens her. And
that's the thing, right? Like she has every card here, right? Yep. Like Alicent comes, which is why it's so great. Like Alicent comes to her with almost no bargaining power, right? Yep. Like literally just, how about this?
She has 7 dragons now. She has the army. She has the momentum. She has the Riverlands as a region. She's like, everything is coming up Rhaenyra right now, and but the personal element of it is still so strong. Of like, there's all the there's like there's like the offense almost of like, you wake me up in the middle of the night and you come here with your bullshit, to the, and you still want to get everything from Rhaenyra's point of view. You still want no punishments for anyone on your side. And they, the calculus, like you said, which is a great term for it, plays out. And then at the end of it, there's a little bit of tragedy, and the love is still so palpable.
Like they can't help it. Like in the end, no matter where the issue is, like they still.
What I dream for myself is like walking in the open air, like she did, and then, dying like was like unmarked and like unremarkable or something like that. And Rhaenyra says, you speak as if from like a lost dream, and like really smiles at her in a genuine way.
Yeah, I mean, it was similar when I was like, I was watching old season 1 episodes, and I was like, where did this Alicent go? Like, this Alicent's nice. This Alicent is cool. Like, she's chill. Like, where did she go? And I think that's like the brilliance of this. It's her trying to get that back despite every immovable reality and issue that she has caused, and also others have caused. Again, is not only one side is to blame issue. Like it's just like so much has gone on, and for her, it's why I do really like the way she's able to push back against Rhaenyra, because it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, we get it, we know Rhaenyra is correct when she's like, oh, so you want to like this, you want to like this. And I do like that Alicent was able to sort of push back, and she's like, and it's just that thing of like, yeah, I get it, like I know, but this is where we are, and this is what I'm offering, and it's just like, and I think in the end, the fact that despite every transgression, every issue, every, it's in a lot of ways similar to their little knife fight where, she's like, you spit in the face of all these things, and it's similar to that, but it's like, and despite all of that, there's still that I can't help but like care about you. Like I'm looking at you face to face, and I don't want anything bad to happen to you.
You're right that it is sort of it's a sequel to that scene in a lot of ways, like or like a redux, because it's like that one was all the rage, the wrath. It was the explosion of this feeling, and this is that same feeling, same observations, but with finally some introspection, like a reflection. Like she's showing up it as like she's laying the same like observations out. You've always shirked responsibility. You've pushed back on what's expected of us. You've done all.
I resent you for it. Yeah.
But it's, I resent you for it because of me. Like, not because, not like the knife fight and like everything that happened on Driftmark and everything after, especially when they visit again King's Landing, and she's like in her uber religious phase with her hair up and everything. And like all of that is very like Alicent trying to uphold the law. And this is finally Alicent realizing that she's a victim of the law.
Yeah.
And all the laws, be they literal or societal, like,
which is like, she essentially says that, right? Okay. Like, he's like, I thought we would all be better off if we stuck to our lane. And instead the road is smashed, kind of thing. No, it's just like, again, it's just really great and really earned character work for these two, and just to be able to watch them go in a way that, again, book readers would not have assumed would have happened. It's just really rewarding, and we're lucky to have all these people, these two women characters, and directed by a woman, written by a woman.
Yeah,
it just like it all just like fits really well into this like celebration of what all these folks are capable of.
Yeah, and ultimately it's sort of like the question that the show's been dealing with from the beginning, which is, can anybody survive this patriarchal society and come out on the other side? Is there a path forward for any of this? Like, I think that's also a big thing that like showing Daenerys speaks to on a meta level of, it will still be this sort of unheard of thing even later. And this saga of the dance might be what people point to for generations after, as a reason why not to go down this way. And like, it's all these things that play into the greater picture, but it's still like, this is one of the ultimate examples of like smallness through bigness and bigness through smallness. Like it's these same people. It's what I in season 1 I compared Alicent and Rhaenyra to like Anakin and Obi-Wan, because the conversation is always the same. Like there's that episode of Obi-Wan Part 5 where they show you these training flashbacks and then show you that Obi can get him in the present in the same way that he did back then in the past. And like, that's sort of like what Alicent and Rhaenyra have been having the same conversation since the earliest hints of sourness when Alicent got chosen as the new wife. Like, it has been. I mean,
it's that brilliant. It's that episode 4, I think, where Rhaenyra is off getting having an inappropriate relationship with her uncle, and meanwhile Alicent is being forced to live the way the queen has to live, and it's your duty is to propagate the line, and you don't get to necessarily choose at what point you're called upon to do that. And so it's like the way they juxtapose those two things, like it all starts there. It's all and it that's what's so brilliant about the way Alicent sours too, because it's like you have to get it when you see it presented like that. It's like you have to see this young girl, same age probably, forced to just serve while the other one gets to run free and doesn't face consequences too. Again, it's like Alicent stands up for her. Again, it's like where everything goes to hell, right? Like, I stood up for you and you lied to me about it. Or and so it's like they're just they have been written in such a brilliant dynamic, better in the show than in the books. Because obviously the pieces are there, but just the way they've been able to do it in the show is a real treat.
Yeah, and I also, talking just about the past a little bit more, like the Alicent finally reflecting on like her relationship with Viserys and reaffirming like his love for Aemond and saying like he was fond of me and I was fond of him, but like in truth it always did come back to her, and therefore
and that was a brutal clapback from Rhaenyra, where she's like, and yet he changed his mind.
Like, it's like, don't let her off the hook. She just like a boxer, like just keeping her on the ropes is like
because she has all the power.
That's real
like
nice.
It's such a great status scene, as they say, like who has status, and they don't let Rhaenyra lose it, which is again also the brilliance of what the character who has no status then brings. So it's just, it was a hell of a way to end the season.
Absolutely. Is
And
there anything else? Winter Wolves, that's one thing. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on, Winter Wolves, or anything else before we get out of here? I know that in the first half we did some stuff, but just before we go, and then
I mean, Triarchy, very interesting. I don't really have a whole lot to say about it apart from Bad Times Ahead, and then but everyone could have guessed that. Just the whole show is Bad Times Ahead. And then what else is fun? Winter Wolves, awesome. I love these. I just love these guys as a fighting force.
They just already look like there's unique cool guys in it, you know.
They're literally like, we want to die before winter. Like we don't want to deal with another winter. So like can we just get on with this?
But the old dudes like there's like a guy with an axe and like this like it looked awesome. We said this in text, but the transition from the Stark theme into the Rains is one of the hardest things I've ever heard.
Ramin Djawadi, dude. Ramin Djawadi will never ever miss in this universe.
No.
I don't know all his scores well enough to say he never missed. Everything I've heard him do is great, but in George R. R. Martin's world, he is God. He is John Williams level God. And yeah, that was brilliant. So many great scenes. I love Alfred Broom being a dickhead and walking off when Damon like confirms his loyalty to Rhaenyra. I love Simon Strong being a gossipy bitch.
Yeah. He's lucky. Broom is lucky that Damon had already taken a head, in the past few days. Like, he's lucky that it wasn't like, all right, yeah, woohoo, Rhaenyra, and first order of business. Broom, who tried treason before you got here.
Yeah, he towed a very interesting line. And I love Simon Strong's face when he was like, "Oh, okay, we're actually okay." I'm just gonna touch on like little things now because that's where we're wrapping up. I loved how Cyrax came around the back and was like, "I got eyes on everybody."
Yeah,
I loved that. And I also loved seeing Tessarion, one of my favorite dragons, making a little bit of an appearance. And then I loved Caraxes and we didn't have any sheep. Is swine okay? Caraxes prefers the swine.
Correct. I mentioned that earlier, dude. Caraxes loving pig.
Caraxes bacon.
Which is just funny on the surface. Caraxes loving the bacon, loving the pork. But also Aemond is the pink dread. Like the pig imagery is Aemond.
Right.
Oh, it's great. That's great.
I mean, you guys probably talked about Helena and Aemond, but
of her calling him out,
yeah, her just going all in on him. I thought
it's the first time he's ever on the back foot, and like,
and he doesn't know what to do with it.
He doesn't know what to do, and she even says, "Oh, and what? Burn me?
Yeah,
okay." Like,
it's not gonna change anything.
Yeah,
and it's a similar thing where it's like, is he learning things the way we know them to be? And it's like, no, like he's just hearing this shit, and like we know various things about what the future can hold,
right,
as readers, but like, again, it's like it's not quite the same of like, oh, so we just saw the future.
No, exactly.
No, like
he's been told things by somebody that they all believe to be unreliable and that they have never really paid attention to, regardless of the frequency of her.
She's loopy to them. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned Cyrax. Before you got here, I was mentioning how much I appreciate that. Like when Cyrax flies up and they cut to the overhead of all of Harrenhal, Rhaenyra being affirmed and Damon bending the knee, the room is facing the opposite way of the Great Council. And it's like the Great Council, they were all parked on the other side, up with Jaehaerys' throne. And that's where they made this decision that was what the realm, of course, would do. Reject this woman, go over here for this safe option, try to appease everybody with Viserys, and then, that laid the groundwork for everything we're doing now. Now we're going to actually choose the woman, and we're going to get an entire region of the continent to affirm their loyalty to this woman, and we're facing the other way. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, just very, again, that doesn't happen by accident. Like,
no,
these are people who get it. They're making it.
Yeah. Boop's here. Boop says Ramin's Westworld score fucks too. I haven't watched Westworld. So I should. To hear the phrase "winter is coming" was awesome. Yeah, I liked that. The High Valyrian. I mean, switching to the Valyrian was great. Boop says, "I can't wait to watch a 3-hour video explaining this show because it sounds interesting as hell." Yeah, Boop, you should just watch. You should just watch our season of coverage on it, and then you tell me what you think happens in the show.
You can storyboard it.
We'll do. Yeah, you tell me based on what we've said this show is doing. I think that's gonna call it for today. Finale. Of course, this one went the longest of any of our discussions. We're gonna do a season discussion with Ken will be on, and Nikki will be there if he can be, and everybody will be there if they can be. And I'm not sure exactly when that's going to be. If it's going to be in the normal slot, if it's going to be a different day, we'll see. The show ending means I no longer have to be up late on Sunday nights, so maybe I'll take advantage of that. I believe Lord of the Rings is Thursdays, which I think they were season 1 as well.
Okay.
So we'll see how that goes. We'll have more information for you on covering Rings of Power season 2 soon. That's in a few weeks, about 3.5 weeks.
You all get a little break.
Yeah, a little bit of a break. Stay tuned for the season discussion on this. Stay tuned for more discussions on things like Damon's big vision of what's happening with the magic. We're going to talk more about dragons. We're going to talk more about all kinds of things. Maybe we'll do some videos that are like, book spoilers filled, and we'll mark them as like, do not watch this if you're show only. Because there are things that, the ending of this episode of like these ships all getting ready, and it's like, yeah, goodbye. We'll see you next time. Everyone go crazy because they know what that is.
We'll go over Caraxes as various pork menu options, and you got ribs, burnt ends.
I also love
very popular.
I also love the shot of Caraxes waking up when Sea Smoke and Cyrax fly in. Caraxes is like, "Hold, I gotta fight." Oh no, I know that.
I also like the idea that I'm like thinking, just like attaching relationships to the dragons that maybe aren't there, where it's like Caraxes and Cyrax were a couple, and now Cyrax is coming up with the old ex-boyfriend dragon is now the new boyfriend dragon again. He's like, was I replaced?
Like, what the fuck? What is
going on? I wonder if Caraxes has had any visions.
Caraxes' vision is just a pig as big as him that he can fight and kill.
It's the pink dread, as he said.
That's good. All right, as Boop says here, good night, lads. I'm gonna go pass out. We are too. You can find Nikki at Niquitius on Twitter, on Instagram at Nictifer. Nikki's links are down below. So are Andy's, so are Andres', so are Ken's, so are mine at that Alden Diaz, THATALDENDIAZ. You have anything specific that you want to plug or anything? I know we just recorded Yub Nub Club.
Yeah.
So that's coming back.
Yeah, that'll come out on the Imperial Senate podcast feed. But no, I will continue to plug this fantastic show we love. So if you feel bad about it ending, let's all go back and rewatch season 1 and 2. So
hell yeah.
House of the Dragon, baby. Let's go.
Absolutely. So for right now, we will catch you next time. We'll catch you next season, but don't go away. Casterly Talk goes on. But these specific episode discussions, it's been a wonderful 8 episodes. Thank you so much for embracing the more casual sort of radio call-in style that we've been doing. Thanks so much for sticking with us amidst a hosting change. Ken sends his love. It's still his channel. He still does all the back end stuff. He still does the podcast version. He's still, he's still here. But him and I were talking, and he and I both really appreciate the way that the comments went from like, "Where's Ken?" to more so just like, "Oh, we actually like this too," which I'm grateful for. So thanks, everybody. And we will catch you next time for our season discussion on the entirety of House of the Dragon season 2. And for right now, good night. Go have a vision. Go touch some tree sap.